Good morning, everyone. I wanted to put a quick video out there that shows the stuff that I've recently been discussing with a friend of mine, and I also mentioned it on Discord. And this is the relationship between where Forrest Fenn was in Vietnam and what we have over in Wyoming. And I showed some of this, not all of it, to Forrest Fenn, and he congratulated me on finding where the grave is that he tripped over in Vietnam. Okay, so this really had nothing to do with the chest. He was just congratulating me on my find in Vietnam. And I did have a little bit of help because a friend of mine was based here from 1967 through 1969. Okay, and he fought along this orange road, basically, which is known as QL 19. And that was a major supply route to bring in stuff for the troops from, east to west, where the Navy would come in over here. This is where Forrest Fenn was based. And I want you to notice that red line. The exact coordinates, east and west, of that line are going to come into play later. And I just want you to notice that it's at the 109 longitude, 109 east, because we're over in Vietnam. 109 west goes through Wyoming. And I'll get to that in a moment. This blue line here is the path that Forrest Fenn describes where he would fly on his bombing mount on Ho Chi Minh Trail. He would go on bombing runs up here. And basically, he would describe under his left wing, he always seen this waterfall, yada, yada. You guys know the story. He promised to go back and visit it. Well, this blue line is roughly what he describes and where that would be. And now remember, he confirmed this with me. And if you take the angle of that blue line and the exact length of that line, it's roughly 94 miles, I believe, as the crow flies. That comes important later, the length and the angle of this line. And like I said, we're north oriented here. So this red line is the 109. And as I said, this is the Tuiwa Air Base where Forrest Fenn was at. Okay. And then this blue line, this is where the waterfalls was up in this area. And I just wanted to briefly show you some interesting things here. Now, this is QL 19. This is what they call Mang Yang Passage. And the French Indochina War was lost right here where I have the stack along QL 19. The French were ambushed. They lost over 1,600 men in one day. And the very next day, they surrendered in the French Indochina War. This is Camp Radcliffe. This is where the Army base was. This is where the helicopter came from that Forrest Fenn had that he borrowed, flew down to pick him up, or Forrest flew into here. Either way, they got in the helicopter, and this is where the special place was. So I just wanted to notice a couple things up here. Now, the graves, I have cemetery right here, but the graves are all over up in this area. That's a mountain peak. You can see it there, okay, when I go on an angle here. So Mang Yang Passage is this road, and it was a dangerous road because there were a lot of ambushes. All this, see the name of this, they actually have nicknames there, the Valley of the Crosses, because before they buried the men up on the top of the mountain, they had crosses and bodies literally all over the place, all along that road, until they buried the men, all up along here. Like I said, they were ambushed down here. Anyway, I want you to notice that what the Air Force would have is they would have a radar station here. That is what the Air Force would use. Now, this was kind of a temporary radar station because obviously we're in an area of war. They don't have that kind of technology. They're in the middle of a war. So we have what they call, I believe it's TACAM. And we would set that up. And then basically the military, this red line, was a road that the military would take to get up here, and they would maintain that. My buddy that was in the Vietnam War was actually one of the people that would go up and maintain that place. So I knew about it, and I talked to him about the story in the book, and that's kind of how I figured out, precisely where the waterfall is. But I'm not really talking about that anyway. That specific spot. I just want you to understand that at the peak of a mountain, there's a radar location right here. It's gone now because this is an updated image. but that's where the relay station was, okay? That would guide planes like Forrest's plane. And all of this area would be under his left wing as he would fly up on his bombing runs on the Ho Chi Minh Trail. This orange line, like I said, is QL-19. They would go from this town over here, Pliku, I'm going to butcher the name, and like I said, it was a major supply route. That's why it was ambushed all the time. Now, in the French Indochina War, the French were ambushed here and they lost the war. In the 60s, we were ambushed on the same road because we became complacent. We almost had the same amount of casualties due to the same mistakes that the French made. Basically, the French were over here at Ankh Pass, okay, and they were ordered to retreat back towards their base, which was over here. Well, the enemy came in behind them, okay, and as they were coming along the road, they ambushed them here and killed 1,600 of them. The radar station is up here, the cemetery, the French graves, and again, this is called Mang Yang Pass, which stands for Mang Yang Mountain. It's a mountain passage to get through the mountain, as you can see here, okay? So that's Mang Yang Pass. That's Vietnam, all right? There's the 109 east. Okay. And I'm at a very specific location in Tuy Hoa, the town. Okay. A very exact east west coordinate. Obviously, we're lower, closer to the equator than we are in Wyoming. We're up like at the 13th parallel here. But if you add 32 to it, it takes you up to the border of Wyoming and Montana. And 32, of course, is the freezing point of water. So if we were to, all these longitude lines obviously go up to the North Pole and they get together, right? Closer together as they reach the pole. So if you followed 190 east up to the pole and then you came down 190, I'm sorry, not 190. If you followed 109 east up to the pole and came down on 109 west, in other words, the same longitude line, but now we're on the opposite side of the earth. That line is this red line right here. Now, the exact coordinate of Tuy Hoa, now remember that it's 32 degrees south of here in latitude, but on the longitude line, east to west, if you go to downtown Kerwin, right here, literally this exact spot in Kerwin, is the exact same spot as Tuy Hoa in Vietnam, exactly, as far as east to west goes. And if you add 32 to the latitude, it becomes exact, right? So now that blue line that I showed you over there in Vietnam that led to Mang Yang Pass, this is that same exact angle and same exact distance line over in Wyoming. And I've shown this before. So Forrest Fenn was taking his flights here and the Ho Chi Minh Trail was here. He would fly right along this blue line, which would take him over the Fishing Bridge area, over the Lee Hardy Rapids, Dragon's Mouth Spring. The picture of Skippy standing next to a rock is right here on the upper falls in the Yellowstone Grand Canyon. You'd fly right over Grebe Lake, okay, right over Arrowhead Canyon, and it would end somewhere around Horseshoe Hill. And you can see just where we are in perspective. This is the Gardner River, which a lot of people would bathe in, and we got Obsidian Creek and so on. So that's where he would fly. So his special spot, if it were in the United States and you didn't mirror anything, would be right here. Okay, right over Grebe Lake and everything. His special spot would be right here, and like I said, this goes right over the Gardner River. Okay, that's where it would be. Now, what I did though, and like I said before, this red line is the same red line that's in Vietnam, except we took the coordinates and instead of being east, it's west. All we did was change the E to a W. and we come right down, and here's Cody just to show you, and it goes right down to Kerwin. Well, if you took this line, okay, and mirrored the trip that Forrest took by 90 degrees. In other words, instead, you take this angle from this red line to here and you flip it so that the blue line is the same distance, and it's a mirror of the angle over to the going easterly instead of west. In other words, when he was west of us, Vietnam is west of here, and he's flying west. But that's on the east side, right? Those are the east longitude coordinates. So if you were going to mirror it, instead of flying west, you would be flying east. So if we take that same trip from here, okay, the blue line takes you right exactly to the Medicine Wheel. Now, here's Medicine Mountain Peak, and look what's at the top of Medicine Mountain. There's your radar dome. Okay. Now, 14. Okay, this is not QL19, but this is 14 coming from Lovell. Guess what the name of this road is right along this area right here? It's Medicine Wheel Pass. Medicine Wheel Passage right here. Medicine Wheel Pass. So this is almost a mirror of Vietnam, where this would be Mang Yang Pass. The French graves would be up here. Okay, you get where I'm going with this. And I thought that was really interesting. Okay. And like I said, I didn't show this part to Forrest Fenn, although I did make a video of it, and it was before he passed away. So I'm pretty sure he probably seen it. But I did show him the part in Vietnam. Okay. But he didn't see the fact that I followed the 109 over here and flipped it. So as you guys know, I'm not looking in Yellowstone. I don't believe it was there. It's illegal to have been there. If it was there, there's no record of it. There would have to be. And I don't think Cameron Shawley or the other people in the Department of Interior or any of those people would lie and put their careers at risk in order to benefit Forrest Fenn and Jack Stoops. So I don't believe that it was in Yellowstone at all. And I believe it was mirrored. But if I were looking in Yellowstone, I mean, this line is absolutely relevant. And all of these places are discussed in the book. And Grebe Lake, especially, that's where, in Too Far to Walk, Forrest Fenn took Coach Chauncey to die at the Grebe Lake. That's also where he took his father to die. He didn't take him over and said, this is the most ludicrous place. There's no way that it was here. There's no way anybody would believe that it was anywhere near 9 Mile Hole. It just doesn't make any sense at all. And Sarah Davis could be at 9 Mile Hole within 2 to 3 hours easily. She could be anywhere in this park relatively quick, but yet it took her 2 weeks to go to the location. And that would explain the fact that this is roughly from here to here is over 100 miles just from the East Gate. So she would have had to set aside some time, maybe a week later or whatever, in order to go out there with the other ranger and investigate the spot. So that's where I believe that she did go. She didn't go in here. Now, a lot of people had said, well, she's the chief ranger of Yellowstone. Yes, she is. But if you look at the sign over here, and I'll show that in a second, it says that the National Park Service is basically responsible for this area. And this, not the National Forest, that's the Department of Agriculture. But this area here, and certainly where the campsite is, BLM land. All right. So it's maintained. So Sarah Davis being the chief ranger, yeah, she would be tasked with going out there to visit it, just like she would be tasked at probably going to any other BLM area outside the park. Them rangers don't only work just in the park. They have the jurisdiction that exceeds the park. So let me show you that image really quick. Yeah, there it is. Go ahead, read it. This is from the upper area where the Five Springs Falls is and where the Medicine Wheel is. Notice what I underlined. Now, like I said, The campsite is BLM land, but BLM land has no infrastructure. There's nobody there on site all the time. There's no entrance fee. There's no gates. There's nothing there. The only time they would send somebody there, a ranger, would be if they had a need to, some crime, something occurred. And then, of course, they would also have local people that would go out there to clean the trash cans and do stuff like that at the campsite. But for the most part, there's never anybody there. It's certainly not built to handle millions of tourists like Yellowstone is. So this sign proves that Sarah Davis would have been the one that would have to go there and investigate. But the other thing that I just wanted to show you is kind of an interesting fact. If you play the Alice in Chains video, Rooster, okay, and you look at 2 minutes and 23 seconds, you're going to see a screen flash. And I caught a copy of that right here in the same video. And this is the image that they have in there. It's Cambodia. See this road here? That's QL19. And here's that Palico that I was describing. This X is the ambush site that they have. And that, you can see it in the video. It appears twice in the video, not just at 2 minutes and 23 seconds. It appears somewhere else. So I'll play a brief section of it. I don't want to play too long because I'll get a copyright strike. And there you've seen the flashing QL19. I thought that was just a pretty interesting fact that area, ambush area, is what's described in Alice in Chains Rooster. I'll show that quickly in Google Earth where the spot is in Rooster. Let's see. Right here. Let me zoom out a little bit here. See, here's that Palico. Here's the QL19 coming in. That ambush site that they're flashing is right here. Now, obviously, the terrain was different back in the 60s when they had a war, but that's basically where they're talking about in that video. That's the footage is probably from a movie and it wasn't taken on site, but basically, that's it. And in relation to where Forrest Fenn's the cemetery is over here, there's also another famous waterfall down here, Fu Quang Waterfall. It's pretty cool. You guys could check it out. That's not Forrest Fenn's waterfall, but but yeah, I just wanted to show this. And like I said, I've discussed this in other videos. I just wanted to put it in a short video so that you guys could see it without having to look through hundreds of videos that I have. So hope you all have a great weekend. Peace.